So having a little trouble with the V-Strom. Gotta tackle this. Backfire, 2500 RPM to 2900 RPM. Let's dive in and see if we can make that go away. Welcome to Urban Monk TV. So what's happening? As I'm in lower gears, bike's running fine except for this one thing. In that 2500 RPM to maybe 3000 range, when I'm in lower gears, like first, second, or third-ish, it happens a little bit, but a lot in second, it'll backfire. And the V-Strom is notorious for having some mapping problems with the factory ECU where it's running really lean. I've read that blame gets put on emissions. You know, whatever it is, it's something that a lot of guys who own these bikes have written plenty about out there. And there's a laundry list of things that you've got to check before you take the bike to Suzuki and start jumping up and down about a new $1,000 ECU. So what I have done is a new air filter and new spark plugs, and there was one other thing I did. Anyways, I knew those things had to be taken care of, and the problem didn't go away. And so I've been managing around that by just, you know, shifting into a gear where I'm at like 3000, 3500 RPM. Then the bike runs fine, and it goes down the road fine, and everything's great. So managing around it has been working, but there's one thing that's driving me crazy. In LA traffic, I've got to lane split to get to work in a timely manner, and my favorite speed when traffic is really dead stopped, where I feel safe, where my speed differential between the cars and myself is, you know, I'm moving along pretty good, but I feel safe, I feel I can stop in time. I gotta have that engine at 2700 RPM, like smack dab in that range, and it's just bugging me. If I go down to first gear, then I'm winding out at 6000 RPM to get at a decent speed, and I'm not getting any air through the radiator at that speed, and blah blah blah. So there's a long laundry list of why I need this fixed, but it's all about lane splitting comfortably. So what's left to do? I'm pretty close to a new valve inspection, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I've still got another, I've got another few thousand miles, but last time I looked at it, everything was within spec, but maybe something's changed. And then the boots around the throttle bodies can be, I've read that they're not installed right at the factory, or they're just loosen up. So we'll be checking that. And then the throttle position sensor. Online you'll hear a lot about adjusting it, and we'll do that, but while I'm going through all the trouble of getting that deep into the bike, I just decided to replace the part, because there's also plenty of information out there from guys saying that it's a bit of an Achilles heel of a part for this bike. So got a new one, we're going to put that in, and let's dive in. I've taken these fairings off so many times now that I can make pretty quick work of it, but I'm going to spare you that. I do have a video on how to get the side covers off with the Givi crash bars installed. And if you have these crash bars, and I know a lot of guys do, watch that video. This is kind of a good time-saving tip. So other than that, there's plenty of other videos on how to get these fairings off, so you can go watch those other guys. Okay, so as I'm disassembling here, this is one of the first places that I'm going to want to put some attention to, and that is these intake boots. These are essentially like an intake manifold coming from your throttle body. So it's between the throttle body and the cylinder head itself, and your airflow is headed this way. And I've read that these are famously loose from the factory. Let me get some light here. And so first thing I want to get at is that screw, and then there's another one on the other side. I'm just going to try to tighten those up. Make sure they're tight. Pretty hard to get at it. This one, though, I can tell is quite snug. So is the other side. But of course they have those two screws that hold them to the head here, but there's also this band at the top. And if you get air leaking here, you're going to get a misfire or a backfire. So check those both. And disconnect this sensor here in the air box, and then you got one down here. There we go. And then you've just got a band here holding on the air box. Can you see that? Yeah, you guys can see that. So I've loosened that one up, and there's another one deep inside that I may need a very long Phillips for. Okay, so with the radiator out and everything apart, I don't need a long Phillips, but that's the band right there that I need to get to. Let me see if I can. But I can't hold the light and the camera and do this all at once, so I'll have to unloosen it off screen here. Here's another struggle, is I'm trying to get at that band around the throttle body connected to the air box above, but I've got this thing to the left, which is just an air hose leading into the air box with a hose clamp on it that is the tabs on it to loosen it are reversed away from the direction I have access to. So if they're all like this, you guys will struggle with this too. What I'm going to try to use is an angled long needle nose pliers. And let me show you. I got to put the put the flashlight in my mouth here so I can't talk. But so essentially, I'm going to use something like these, but I'm going to need both hands to come up around and somehow turn those tabs outward so that I can actually reach them next time. I can see why they may have moved them though, because then they'd be in the way of getting a screwdriver in there. I don't know. A little bit of a challenge. There's always something. Okay, I sure wish I could show you how I did that, but I needed both of my hands and a little bit of a contortion act to make it happen. But get those turned around so you can get access to them. Then you can get a pliers on them and pull it off. Okay, so with the bands at the top of the throttle bodies here and the one I showed you underneath, and these electrical plugs, this hose right here, I took a photograph of all of this so I can show that here. And you know, keep your camera around. And then so the same thing on the bottom side, this band was loosened and all the other holes, and you don't have to take the whole airbox assembly apart to do that. We can just lift this thing out. I guess I've got one vacuum line down here. Frankly, can this whole thing slip off of here? Yeah. Let me just leave this on the bike. Just got these rubber tabs that hold onto a bracket here to keep it all isolated. It's amazing stuff these engineers come up with. Anyway, so there's that bracket, and this thing just slides right onto that bracket. So now I've got access to my throttle bodies. So So fast forwarding here just a little bit, but a lot of what I skipped here is pulling off the radiator, pulling off the side shrouds, all of the things that get me to the tops of both of my cylinder heads. And all of that is already documented in another video that I did on how to check the valve clearances. And while I'm in here, I'm going to do it again because I'm within 5,000 miles of my inspection interval anyways, so we'll do that. But of course the purpose here is to check this throttle position sensor, and we'll show you that when we get in here. But for how to get to this point with the radiator off and draining the coolant system and blah blah blah, go to the video on valve clearance check for the V-Strom. Mine. So this is the guy we're here to inspect, and he has a screw here and a screw here, and these are slotted. I'll show you the part outside the bike, so that this can rotate ever so slightly on the throttle butterfly valve shaft, and this sends the signal to the computer, your ECU, saying this is the position the throttle is in right now. And if it gets off, well, then you're sending the wrong signal, and the computer calculates the wrong result for air-fuel mixture, and that could be the source of our backfire. So one thing you need to get down on these screws, two things you need actually, is a right angle screwdriver, because it's very tight in the frame here, especially for the bottom one. But either one, this frame is so big, it's just a big chunk of aluminum here that you cannot get through or around unless you've got a right angle screwdriver. And then the other thing you need are security bits. This is a Torx 25 security bit. Notice the little hole in the tip of it. So you know, if you haven't got one, get a cheap set of these security bits that has every conceivable type of fastener you might run into on projects like this, and be prepared. Okay, so it's really important that I talk about what I've done here off camera. You can't just assume that the problem is, when you have this backfire, that the problem is the throttle position sensor. The other things that can make that happen are bad spark plugs, clogged air filter, valve body sync, like out of sync, the two bodies not pulling the same vacuum. So you got to do that, and then you got to check your valve clearances. So I have recently put in a new air filter. I know I've got less than like 3,000 miles on that air filter. That ain't the problem. I've put new spark plugs in at that same time 3,000 miles ago. That isn't the problem. I just did a vac sync, and I got a video on how to do that, and especially how to, you know, put these vacuum lines so that it's easy to get at when you have the tank on for future use. The first time it's difficult, and then it's easy after that. So put a couple of these in and mount them here, rear and front are right there. And then I just got done buttoning up the tops of the heads because I did check the valve clearances. They're all smack dab in the middle of in spec. Those look good. So next step is to look at that throttle position sensor and its setting. So if you go to the back of the bike, tucked back in here in this wiring harness is a little plug with this rubber cap on it. And what you do is take a paper clip or something and jump two of these wires. They are, let me get you the colors here. Oh, it's going to be hard for you to see, but they are white and red and black and white. The other way to look at it is there's a contact, let me find something to point with. There's a contact here, but not here. There's not one here, but here, and then there's one here and here. So these are the only two that are, you know, up and down from each other or parallel with each other, where they both have a wire going to them. This one is empty and this one is empty. So
you know, in order to be jumping where there actually are wires, you'd be going diagonal here. You don't want a diagonal, you want up and down. So there's only one way to do that. And again, it's the red and white and the black and white. So get those jumped, then turn on your ignition and look right here. You see this C, and then there's a little line there. That line has 3 positions. Right now it's in the upper position. Then midway on the C is the middle position, and at the bottom of the C would be the lower position. We got to get this in the middle. And so right now it is not in the right position, and this could be my problem. That being said, I did buy a brand new part because I figured if I'm in here, this is quite a bit of work to get here. I may as well replace it with a new part. I'm going to turn that off, spare my battery. And so I'm going to replace the part first, then we're going to get that line in the middle next to the C, if that makes sense. So let me replace this part. And here is your part number 13580-02F00. Same number below there. So that's your genuine, yeah, there, how about I show that? There's your part number. Looks like this. Got 3 pins and a shaft or input for the throttle shaft to go on. So the mounts in there are kind of oriented like this. Here's the old one in here. This is the front throttle body that this is on. So I'll put my new part down here. Don't drop it. It is a sensitive piece of electrical equipment. You know, essentially what this thing is doing, it's a potentiometer, if you know what that is. You put this back. So as this is turning, it is giving, I probably should not turn that. Well, it'll center out. As the shaft is turning in here, it's giving more or less voltage to your computer, and thus the computer is determining the opening or closing of the throttle body, that butterfly valve, given the voltage. But if they start having a kind of a bad spot in them, then they'll send the wrong signal and your computer starts making air-fuel mixture ratios that are off and incorrect. So it's got to be working. Okay, well here's a problem. Here's the new one. Here's the one I just pulled off the bike. 4 pins, 3 pins. So this ain't going on the bike. I'm going to try to just put this in the correct position and see if my problem goes away. But I'm going to have to return this part. Too bad I had to cut the seal on the box to discover that. And I'll have to do some research and see why. Maybe, you know, I've got a 2012, maybe this thing is for 2005 or something, I don't know. We'll figure that out. Okay, so I've got the part back in, and I've got this screw and the one below snug but not tight, so that I can turn the part, the sensor. And now I'm going to refocus the camera on the screen so that you can see those 3 marks that we have to get lined in the, or it's 1 mark in 3 positions. We got to get the middle position. Okay, so I've got my jumper wire in. I'll turn this on. We see our little mark, and now I'm going to start adjusting the TPS. There. Boy, that did not take much. Oh, and I didn't even move it, and it moved. So I'm going to push it down just a bit. There we go. That should be good. Right in the middle. And you see if I go too far the other way, well, I've pushed it all the way down and it won't even go there. So anyways, that should be good. I think I'm going to cycle the throttle once. Just move my there. It's returning to the center. So I'll snug it up in that position. Okay, I snugged them up. Just one more check before I button everything up. Still in the middle. Oh, no, see? Good thing I checked. I'll loosen these screws and do it again. Okay, back on. Too high. Okay. Snug it up again and see if they stay there. Okay. Let's see. There. Staying in the middle position. This should run better. We'll see. Now I got to put everything back together, and I will give you a report. And before you start buttoning everything back up, make sure you take a little jumper wire out of here again, and just put this little protective rubber cap back on. Keep that port clean. And just tuck it back down in there. And so this whole assembly is part of our breather, and it goes down to the breather on the, this hose does, on the front cylinder head. But I took it off of there because I had already hooked it up, just so I could have enough slack to get it back into this bracket here. And that's just rubber mounts. So next time I go in, I'll know better about how to do this the easy way. You learn each time the little tricks. I've gotten much faster at doing valve clearance checks now that I've done them 3 times. This thing seems to be, I don't know, it's not even that important really. Okay. Now that can all go down in there, and we really want to make sure that we get these sealed good, and it could be tricky. I don't know if I got to do the front first. I think I do. There we go. Yeah, see, I'm binding it here. I think the rear, so do the rear first. Oh, get the clamp up. There we go. Rear first, then down onto the front. There. Not too shabby, as Adam Sandler would say. And while I'm here, I'm going to plug this in because I know it goes there. And this guy plugs in up here. Why am I pulling so hard on that wire? This doesn't seem to me like that should pull so much. Oh well, there's slack there. All right, get these snug, but don't strip out the threads. If these are loose, you're gonna run lean and have a hard time. And then just make sure underneath that you orient your band so that you can get your screwdriver on it. It's kind of an awkward angle. Okay, quick test ride. Let's see if we've been successful. Might have to adjust the idle. So what I'm going to do is deliberately ride in second gear right at that 2500 RPM range where I was having all the trouble before. And I'm just going to ride around the neighborhood and just hold it right there. And if I guarantee it'll happen because it was happening all the time. If it doesn't, well then I know I solved it. Yes, I cannot tell you how happy I am. I even got off the wrong side of the bike. I'm so excited. I've been putting up with this thing for weeks, and this is like a brand new bike right now. So, what can I say? You guys, if you have one of these bikes and you're getting that backfire, well, I learned that I didn't necessarily need a brand new part. I got a new part I gotta get rid of somehow. Let's see if I can take it back. I bought it online. Sorry. Put the helmet down. So, you gotta get that thing adjusted. You have to, before you adjust it though, you gotta eliminate all the other problems. Air filter, throttle body sync, valve clearance, spark plugs. I think that's the 5. And then if you got all those 5 good, then look at your throttle position sensor setting. And it's not that big a deal. Yeah, I took a bunch apart, but you know, these things are what they are. The fairing is a lot of fasteners, and you get to know all those fasteners. Watch those fairing videos. So anyways, 38,000 miles on the bike, rides like it's brand new. I love these things. So hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll get back to the Cafe Racer next week. Take care.